Who are these people?
Yeah, you were like,
But
bye, I gotta go sleepsies. you
yes.
know. Like, all right,
Um,
I got it.
but as we said, we normally don't do stories like these. We normally don't do like the hot topics in independent media. But
them all.
once again, we feel one, we would kind of be reporting on this as it was well, more or less as it was happening, since we knew people will start talking about this today. Number two, this is kind of more of a victory lap, for us in terms of what it means in regarding force to vote, which we are advocates for at INN. But as we said, we are tying this to a larger issue as to the why, which you kind of shared in the previous segment. Yep. But it also will also have a little fun and give some of our friends some praise in terms of what they were saying online yesterday. So of course, we guys all know McCarthy got the boot yesterday as Speaker of the House. And I'm sure Brett Wilkins, friend to the show, had to write this last minute because, as he has said to us, he normally doesn't do domestic policy stories like this. That's not necessarily his expertise. But we haven't heard from Brett for a while, so we're going to give him a shout with this quick article where he writes, GOP political arsonists get their man. McCarthy ousted in historic House vote.
Historic.
In less than a year, Kevin McCarthy... Historic, that's that word again. That should be a shirt, too.
Right.
In less than a year, Kevin McCarthy has proven himself to be the weakest House Speaker in modern history. A Republican bill.
You're weak.
That's crowd.
You're weak.
So you might need to move your screen because it's in the way.
Yeah, sorry. Let's do, how about that?
That's perfect. Thank you.
So weak.
All right.
So weak.
For the first time in U.S. history, the House of Representatives voted to oust its own leader yesterday after a motion by far-right Republican Matt Gaetz of Florida to vacate the appointment of Speaker of the House Kevin McCarthy's speakership passed with 8 GOP votes and the support of every Democrat present. So remember that number, okay?
Yeah. Yep.
The 216-210 vote to remove McCarthy came after his allies failed to come up with enough votes to table the motion to vacate.
So you're telling me there would have been 0 Republicans to vote out Nancy Pelosi? Is that what you're saying? There wouldn't have been any to? Okay.
Well, I mean, I'll say this now. I would argue that there would have been some Republicans who would have loved to vote against Nancy Pelosi.
Almost all of them. Might have.
Pretty much all of them.
Almost all of them. And then you would have only needed how many Democrats? How many Democrats would you have needed?
That's for shits and giggles.
8 Democrats is all you would have needed?
But not even that, but technically, theoretically, about 100, because the Congressional Progressive Caucus is about 100 people deep.
Yes,
you would think that all of them would
like
what? About 12. Well,
12, so you only need
about a dozen of them.
So you only need 8 of them, 8 of them, and the rest of the Republicans, which, you might not get every Republican, but, you make it up for in the... I mean, I'm just saying sometimes strategy is a thing with numbers and, that we might have known some shit. I'm just saying we might have known some shit. I'm just saying. Anyway, continue. Y'all motherfuckers wrung out the gate.
In addition to Gaetz, the Republicans who voted for the motion to vacate were Republicans Biggs, Buck, Burchett, Crane, Good, Mace, and Rosendale. Haven't heard of any of them, so
yeah,
never mind.
I heard about Good, but
all Americans should watch this latest spectacle and know House Republicans have no business running a lemonade stand, let alone the Congress.
Okay.
Those lawmakers have accused McCarthy of being insufficiently conservative. They were incensed by his deal with the White House to raise the debt limit earlier this year and have demanded the House to make deeper cuts to social safety net programs than the deal contained. The pro-democracy group Stand Up America say in a statement that today's vote to remove Kevin McCarthy as Speaker shows how intent ultra-MAGA Republicans are on sowing chaos and dysfunction rather than actually governing on behalf of the American people. Okay.
I mean,
So
if the
what is that?
Democrats were running a lemonade stand, they put some rainbow flags up, but they do the same thing the Republicans did the week before.
Right.
I mean, I'm just saying, like, you know,
It's clear who's really in charge of the GOP conference. Matt Gaetz and his band of political arsonists, the group added. MAGA Republicans' sole agenda is to grind the federal government to a halt, use their power to exact political revenge, and attack our democracy and basic freedoms. We can't expect the same election deniers who tried to overthrow the will of voters on January 6th to legislate for the American people now. On Monday, Gaetz accused McCarthy of making a secret side deal with President Joe Biden to provide more funding for Ukraine. It's going to be difficult for my Republican friends to keep calling President Biden feeble while he continues to take Speaker McCarthy's lunch money in every negotiation.
Except, is that what happened? Like, I mean, sure. It's also Biden's doing plenty that McCarthy would like, so.
Right. Such as
almost like Pelosi with Trump. Almost.
Negotiated away the right to not cancel student debt, but like
right,
cutting the deadline.
Yes.
So
yep.
McCarthy didn't have to fight hard for that.
No.
So
no, it's almost quid pro quoing and setting it up for you to have nice, easy pitches to hit. But you know, whatever.
Right. And funny enough, people forgot that, because I got some of that. No, I got some of that on Twitter. That might have to be an extra story regarding how certain Democrats, many of them progressive, voted to stop to have student loan debt restart in the guise of, oh, we had to because the Republicans were going to cut like social service spending and all that stuff. Bitch, that's happening anyway. Like we reported how Biden has already cut Medicare, like now that we're out of the pandemic. That's already happening without the Republicans' help. So, you could make the case in terms of we refuse to vote for a dirty bill because, and the Republicans are attaching these demands regarding social services in addition to restarting student loan debt when Biden said that he was going to cancel it. But you didn't hear any Democrat, as far as I know, make us think about that. It was just like, oh, well, it's going to be restarting, and then maybe we'll write some well-meaning or forceful letters to try and convince Biden to cancel student debt well after the fact. But you're going to go off on this over Gaetz doing this. Okay. Anyway. McCarthy's chances of remaining in the Speaker's chair took a big hit yesterday when House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries signaled that Democrats would do nothing to help salvage the Speaker's chair, vowing instead to vote in favor of his ouster. Given their unwillingness to break from MAGA extremism in an authentic and comprehensive manner, House Democratic leadership will vote yes on the pending Republican notion to vacate the chair, Jeffries wrote in a Dear Colleague letter. Congressional Progressive Caucus Chair Jamil Jayapal told reporters Tuesday that we are not voting in any way that will help Republicans. There's a reason after reason just to let Republicans deal with their own problems, she added. Let them wallow in their pigsty of incompetence and ability to govern.
Except, what did you do? What did you do, Jamal? What did you do? Huh? You voted to oust him.
Pot, meet kettle.
Yes. Yes. Man, that shit black. You black. But like every Democrat voted for what, Collin? To get rid of their weak speaker?
Right.
So that they might have a chance to have a better speaker? Is that not helping the voting for helping? Anyway, continue.
New acting speaker pro tempore, Republican Patrick McHenry, will now take the gavel until someone is elected to take McCarthy's place. Responding to McCarthy's pending ouster in a statement ahead of the final vote, Republican Bill Pascrell said that in less than a year, Kevin McCarthy has proven himself to be the weakest House Speaker in modern history.
Uh-huh. So you helped him. Okay, yeah. Continue.
Every decision Mr. McCarthy has made with eyes only on the Speaker's gavel, he continued. Governance and trust have been secondary. Mr. McCarthy made corrupt bargains with right-wing extremists to seize power.
Who?
He handled these misfits the tools they now wield against him, so let him negotiate with these wolves. All Americans should watch this latest spectacle and know House Republicans have no business running a lemonade stand, let alone the Congress, Pascrell said. The House Republican majority can decide who they want to be Speaker of the House, but the Speaker cannot count on me to save him from the inmates he empowered in a Republican asylum.
Oh, God. Collin, did they get like the Game of Thrones last season writers to write their responses? Is that what happened?
I didn't watch Game of Thrones, so you'll have to kind of explain that to me.
I'm sure my audience will agree. That's what, like, they would negotiate with these wolves. This fucking flowery bullshit nonsense that you're spitting out here. They empowered the Republican asylum because is there a Democratic asylum? You think that doesn't exist? Okay. You know, I mean, whatever.
I would argue that the squad is living in that asylum.
Yeah, there's a few people in that. But you know, whatever. Both sides bad. Well, Nico here. House speakers for both U.S. and Canada have been ousted within a week of each other, all because of Ukraine. Imagine losing your job because you couldn't say no to Nazis. That's. I mean, I think Nico wins. Nico gets $200. You know,
and it's great. Did very well. So yeah.
Here's Jim Jam with his take. Day after day, we are shown that force the vote was the correct strategy, and AOC and the fraud squad turned on their base and sided with the establishment. Imagine the energy, enthusiasm, and power to make demands the left could have had if they were more like Matt Gaetz and less like themselves. Jimmy, we can whisper of a dream with you. It's okay. We could whisper of it. Don't forget the liars in the lefty media who slandered us and lied to protect crooked politicians such as Jink Uger and Ryan Grimm, etc., etc., etc. We know some of those folks. But first, I think we all need dance break.
2, 3, woo! Force
we even had a song.
You know that you have got to force the vote. You know that you have got to. Do you want to be a fighter? Now's your time. You have got to try to make the future brighter. You have got to stand for what is right. Come together, make the world a little better for me. And you, yeah. Do you want to be a fighter? Do you wanna force
the vote?
You know that you have got to
Force the vote.
You know that you have got to.
You think Matt was listening to that this weekend?
Probably not, but
Why? Wait. Here. Exit. Exit. Okay, next. No. Next. Is it gonna go? So Bree weighs in. Democrats gave up power largely because certain leftists were too stupid to understand politics and too smug, small, and petty to listen to those of us who did. A once-in-a-generation opportunity squandered. Really embarrassing stuff from the establishment left. Bree, I got words, but, good for you on this one. I'll let you run your victory lap.
Again.
Let's go back and remember the battles we once had.
Third or fourth
Second round. Wait a second.
round of
Second
voting.
round. Second round. Now you have 15 people who vote for Hakeem Jeffries, 215
So we're in that second round now.
who vote for McCarthy, and 205 who vote for Nancy Pelosi. What happens then, Virgil?
Wait, hang on. Why would if memory serves, McCarthy
So
got
these
212 votes? So you're not saying that number goes
No,
up?
I'm suggesting
That's
in
every
round two,
Republican.
in round two,
In
one
round
of two
two,
things has to happen.
nobody can marshal a majority, so it goes to round three.
No. You don't need you need a plurality
No,
of
no, no.
names.
That's not true.
It would
That
require
is not true.
Democrats would have to vote for Kevin McCarthy to be speaker. Or
Fair,
a large number would have to abstain altogether.
Yes,
or
or
Republicans would have to vote for Hakeem Jeffries.
Which they're not going to do.
Which they're not doing.
They're not.
No.
abstain. Under your scenario, Sam, you need a majority of the people voting for a name.
Okay, so let's say,
which is to say not voting present, which means
Not
that
voting
if every single Democrat shows up and they vote for someone, then unless they have a majority within that caucus, I'll say it's not a majority, and this is again assuming the Republicans voted as a bloc and they are a minority, and no Democrat is going to vote for McCarthy, obviously, then it's just going to keep going to successive ballots.
Right.
And this is not an unprecedented situation.
Right.
It's simply a situation we've not had in 100 years.
And importantly, this
And
could
so-
go on for dozens of rounds, as it did in the historical precedent that Virgil is nodding to. And this is where we start to talk about media attention and spectacle, where Nancy Pelosi, who 3/4 of Americans want to step down, a bipartisan majority of people can't stand Nancy Pelosi. Nancy Pelosi, who is
So, like, if
Right.
all of the Republicans
Go ahead.
wanted to get rid of her, they could have easily voted. It's almost like if all of the Democrats voted against McCarthy. Oh, wait, that's what happened.
well, we
down.
got to talk about Democrats
Was
because
down-
the Republicans, the Republicans
half-
are irrelevant.
Yeah, it's like half of Democrats want her. I think it's a majority of Democrats want her to step down. So the question is, isn't this part of the spectacle that we're trying to create around the issue of why 15 million people just lost their health insurance and what the government is going to do about it in this moment? So we don't end up in a situation where Joe Biden is saying, let's do more COBRA payments. Let's give more giveaways to the private insurance industry. And even if it doesn't result, obviously, in Medicare for all tomorrow, what it does is finally force has the best chance of
Why did it?
third or fourth or
round. Wait a second.
50th
An unprecedented situation.
Right.
It's
where Nancy Pelosi, who 3/4 of Americans want to step down, a bipartisan majority of people can't stand Nancy Pelosi. Nancy Pelosi, who is
Well,
down.
we got to talk about Democrats
Was
because
down-
the Republicans, the Republicans
half-
are irrelevant.
Yeah, it's like half of Democrats want her. I think it's a majority of Democrats want her to step down. So the question is, isn't this part of the spectacle that we're trying to create around the issue of why 15 million people just lost their health insurance and what the government is going to do about it in this moment? So we don't end up in a situation where Joe Biden is saying, let's do more COBRA payments. Let's give more giveaways to the private insurance industry. And even if it doesn't result, obviously, in Medicare for all tomorrow, what it does is finally force has the best chance of
Oh, that's where it does end. Gotcha. Cool. Thoughts so far, Care Bear?
I mean, I remember her saying this 2 years
Third
ago now.
Right.
But the idea of and I'll say this and I'm going to use nice language. I'm going to say this for the people who need a lot of patience to understand the idea of forced to vote, because there's still some people online who believe or are trying to spin the idea of, oh, you can't do forced to vote because there was no way that we were going to get Medicare for all in this case.
Watch
It
your
was never
profanity.
it was never about getting Medicare for all. We knew, people who were intelligent knew there was no that wasn't going to happen. What was going to happen is exactly what is happening now with Gates. The fact that he has gotten so much attention, really, I can make the argument for the last year, like he's been getting a lot of attention in terms of him just going up against Kevin McCarthy, and not necessarily for anything really tangible for the American people per se, but the demands that his caucus was making to basically have Kevin McCarthy basically kind of kneel and cry uncle. That's what we were trying for the squad to do to Nancy Pelosi,
Right.
to make her kneel
on the
in
same
exchange to kneel in, like, to exchange the idea of you're withholding progressive policies that the American people want in the middle of a fucking pandemic. If you want to remain speaker, you would offer, and it didn't have to be Medicare for all. Take your pick of any progressive policy.
Right.
Offer something up to the floor for a vote. And otherwise, we will just withhold our vote. And the idea of what we're seeing now, and what we're probably going to see over the next few weeks, I would imagine, because now whoever the new speaker of the House is, knows now that they have to deal with Gates, and Gates can basically be like, "Fuck you! I'm not voting for you. Like, until you meet our demands." So this circus probably continue for weeks, in the same way that we wanted the squad to do this for weeks, in terms of actually doing something for the people. But no, they punked out because they were too afraid of their careers to be willing to make the stand that Gates did in order to get the result that they ran on to deliver for the American people.
Yeah.
So it's the idea of bringing more attention, and this is the thing with mainstream media, because even Jordan Charlton said this. Mainstream media loves the drama. This is essentially a fucking soap opera.
Imagine, whisper of a dream with me, of we do this during the height of a pandemic about single-payer healthcare. That's not a whole cycle of stuff that is important to your supposed progressive, anyway.
Right. As Indy said in the chat, the media would be forced to talk about it, because we haven't talked about Medicare for all since then.
Right.
That
That's
has been
being forced to cover Ukraine at least a little bit.
Right. So that was the idea, is to force that media swell that would kind of garner people as far as organizing, as far as getting out in the streets, to push politicians, and especially if politicians would dare to try and vote against Medicare for all, again, insert progressive policy here, in the middle of a damn pandemic, or even now when, especially with inflation, that people are trying to scrap by on whatever money or whatever it means they can. I want to see the actual politicians who will be that heartless to vote against their constituents in terms of what they want. That was the idea of forced to vote. It wasn't necessarily to get Medicare for all. That wasn't going to happen. But it was the idea of to force the media to talk about something that they've been implicit in not talking
which we've talked about,
because
we've talked about them doing that in House Dems tried to do that with gun control when they had no power to do it. So obviously this is a strategy. They just don't know when to use it.
No, they know when to use it. They're just too chicken to do it.
Right. literally, but they'll do it over a thing that they know they're going to lose on, so that they like, same thing with student debt stuff, right? Like they just,
Right.
you know, and then they well, you know, we got to get reelected come, and then we'll fix it. It's like, do you think we're
Dumb, stupid, or dumb? Huh?
like, which one? Like, anyway, back to the stupids. Sam Cedar, huh? We were joking on the show today that no one could be this stupid, and yet retweeting Jimmy here, talking about that it's exactly force the vote, which it is. It's exactly what it's literally the same thing, right? Bree, he still seems unable to make an argument or explain why he couldn't comprehend that there was no real risk of Kevin McCarthy becoming Speaker of the House if progressives had tried to force the vote. But hey, he's always have calling me angry because he lost a friendly debate. Take the L, bro.
And I mean, apparently, well, Bree blocked me, but apparently, I guess Sam was being like a bitch to Bree,
Right.
I guess, over the last day in terms of this. So,
Right. So, Indy, who's in the chat now, adds those were and are status quo, corporatist, Bree. Labels are bad anyway. Anyone against, I wonder where he got this. Anyone against force the vote as a strategy was straight wrong, and they still act like they've been right and vindicated the whole time. It's the ultimate gaslight to call them leftists at all, but labels are meaningless. That they are, sir. They're meaningless, they're bad, they're terrible. Stop using them. Whether that be labeling a country or yourself or someone else, just stop it. Just stop it. Okay? Like, anyway, Max Blumenthal, it was always unreasonable to expect the squad to do to Pelosi what Gates did to McCarthy. They're moved by an aspiration to celebrity, sounds like other people we talk about, lacking in political education, and the progressive forces that brought them to power protected them from pressure from Jimmy Dore and others. Where was the first place that this lady went on in independent media?
Jimmy Dore.
Oh, Jimmy Dore. So biting the hand that feeds, right? So the numbers were identical, which we've said numerous times this story. So look at that. Squad absent or present votes 8. Look at that. 8 votes, all you needed. You had 12 of them in the squad. You had 100 progressive caucus members.
Right, really.
Like
theoretically, that should have blown out of the water. Really,
right.
If all the progressives in the progressive caucus actually did what they were seemingly what they should have been doing.
What happened? Survey says didn't happen. Like, Bree again, truly insane how well these clips hold up. Which clip, you say? Well, let's read what the clip said originally. This is a situation where there's leverage because of the narrow majority in the House, like we saw in January with the Force the Vote campaign. If 10 or so progressives were willing to withhold their vote, the posture of this situation would change dramatically. Okay?
I think I remember Ilhan almost saying only needed 4.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's enormously disappointing. Look, there has been some diversity of opinion in the House. We had Rokana on the show earlier this week. He was very clear that he would not vote against the stimulus on the basis of the $15 minimum wage not being included. However, other progressive has been more flexible on this issue. Jamal Bowman has indicated that he's very frustrated that the House isn't fighting, House Democrats aren't fighting harder, rather. And you heard Pramila Jayapal indicate something similar. So, people like David Sirota, smart political reporters who have been on the Hill a long time, have pointed out that this is a situation where there is leverage because of narrow majorities in the House, the narrow Democratic majority in the House, in the same way as we saw last month or back in January with the Force the Vote campaign. If, 10 or so progressives were willing to withhold their votes, the posture of this conversation would change dramatically. If Republicans are willing to say they're not going to vote for this enormously popular stimulus bill because they think they're giving Americans who are struggling in an unprecedented way too much money, it's really damning when you look at Democrats who are unwilling to hold the line to give Americans more, the help they actually voted for and the help they actually need.
Yeah.
Yep. So 10 would have just had to withhold their vote.
Sure.
Not even vote. Just withhold it. So no, I don't want to hear that again. Thank you. Next, please. Go. There we go. I spoke with my former boss, Autopilot, on this week's premium episode of Bad Faith Pod about his role in Force the Vote debate, confronting him on his Paygo take, his Jayapal interview, and accusations that he carried water for the squad. I mean, Paygo, it's not sexy, Collin. Collin, it's not sexy. But it's something. It's something. So, enjoy this airplane blooper from Autopilot here.
When it comes to you, particularly Ryan, and some of the frustrations that some folks on the left have with you, it's because to many of us, when they did not actually secure an end to Paygo, it was validation of the fact that they should have actually used leverage instead of doing whatever they were doing behind the scenes. They should have actually held up the vote for Nancy Pelosi as Speaker of the House until they got some concrete, full-blown get rid of Paygo. And at the time, your tweets about how they had actually secured a win in getting rid of Paygo because they got Paygo exemptions that apply to bills pertaining to the environment.
What happened to those exemptions, Collin? What happened to those? Something happened to those. They might have not actually been as rock solid as we were led to believe.
And healthcare,
public coronavirus, public health and climate,
right, which are relevant.
Which I would argue you could drive a truck through.
Sure, but I would also argue that the $15 minimum wage clearly is within the parameters for reconciliation, and that's what many people thought until the corporatists in the Democratic Party decide what they want to do with it. And so it's subject to the same kinds of interpretations, right? So
true, but the budget chairman was a Medicare for All supporter, and
sure,
there was
but
behind this, anyway.
Even Pramila Jayapal, we're now learning, who I would have...
No, you are making assumptions there, Ryan. What are you doing? You know what that makes you?
Up until this moment, considered to be a real progressive ally. I don't mean to cast aspersions, but we now have reporting that she was the one that was arguing to take $15 minimum wage, to drop the fight for 15, and she was corralling all of the rest of the progressives not to fight on that issue.
She was saying, don't hold up the House bill to fight over 15.
Yeah.
Why?
So, I mean, there are all kinds of pressures operating on different people that are separate and apart from who they are deep inside and what they want secretly in their heart and all of that. I can't deal with that. That's between them and whatever they believe in.
We're not going to make
all I know is how they're behaving. And at the time, Ryan, the fact that you were driving that point home so hard and really advocating for, the idea that they had truly won something.
Are you sure about that?
That was super relevant and consequential. Seemed like it was, in the terms of the internet, carrying water for these squad members to whom the rest of us perceived as having pretty obviously lost an important fight that they could have won.
I mean, what? No, I don't want to hear Ryan again. Thank you. Next, please. Why?
Do you want me to decide?
No, it's
Okay.
just taking a second for some reason. Look, Chunk Yogurt. If the Democrats vote with McCarthy, they have to ask for something that's actually going to help the American people, not just more earmarks and privileges for themselves. Ask for a vote on paid family leave. It polls at 84%. There's no reason why we can't pass it. I wonder what he's saying there. That almost sounds like you're advocating for the Democrats to strategy of force the vote. He's hoping you forget he lied about it and sided with crooked politicians while slandering grassroots activists, while the Democrats actually had the power to do it. Fraud Squad defender, Chunk Yogurt, Fat Tony. Look, Collin. I think people know that guy. The squad should be eating crow right now. They should be embarrassed for not doing the very thing that Matt Gaetz was willing to do. Imagine them having the balls to hold Pelosi or Jeffries accountable. Imagine, Collin. Whispering of Dreams. Look, Hardlands Media with everything that took place. Turns out Jimmy Dore, Brianna Joy Gray, Hardlands Media, Nico House, Get Indie News, Red Black Network, and so many others are correct about Force the Vote. Never forget those that stood against it. Okay? Hey, thanks for the shout out. One of our highest viewed videos is on the matter. You can find it here. How many views on that?
Not one of our highest, the highest today.
The highest, 2.5K. It's right here. I'll put it in chat. Look at that. If I open speaker notes. Hey, I can do stuff. Cool. But yeah, we covered that. Copy, paste into chat. Go watch that. Give that some more views.
Monetized, by the way, folks.
Yes, it did. And we covered House Dems trying to force the vote here, which we did. I'll put that link in
guns.
So, go watch those things. But Nick from RBN, after seeing what is happening to Kevin McCarthy due to the actions of small militant caucus, almost like the squad, I'd be less members than the squad had, I think. It'd be embarrassed if I was someone on the left who spoke out against Force the Vote when we demanded AOC and the squad do the same to Nancy Pelosi. How does it feel to be proven so completely wrong and exposed as a naive political child? I bet it don't feel great, Collin.
Nope.
So,
but they're gonna lie about it though.
That's our story.
Look,
so
I'll just say this to close, and I said this on Twitter earlier today. Like, ultimately, I mean, we had our fun yesterday. We were just kind of like, oh, I mean, as we said, we couldn't imagine that McCarthy would have been ousted as speaker. We didn't see that. I personally did not see that happening at all. But it happened, whatever. But at the end of the day, it's going to be another corporate goon that's going to be speaker.
Yep.
Does this really change anything? No.
Not
so,
right although
not right now,
and it'll change some stuff on specific things that it might change.
Right. I mean, the only benefit is that, well, for at least for Matt Gaetz and company, that any new speaker coming in basically has to be like, oh shit, I have to deal with these folks.
I mean, it might,
what do they want?
It might get us out of Ukraine and into
China.
What? Right. So,
That's right, bitches.
Right. And it's funny, and how I'm going to say this. Marjorie Taylor Greene today, I wouldn't say infiltrated, but she visited the Code Pink rally.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I have issues. I mean, I kind of called out some hypocrisy, but granted, all of that, I have to wonder, did anyone in Code Pink talk to her or challenge her about, okay, you want to get out of Ukraine? How you plan to do that?
Yep.
How are you going to force that to happen? And then, you're gonna pull. So even if you do pull out of Ukraine, what are you gonna do against China? Well, Taiwan.
Ask
You
them.
know, I'm sure they didn't. You
Ask
know,
them.
so I'm sure they rather just took that picture, picture that they did, and just to give, just as a way for her to troll the squad, basically. Which, I mean, she had every right to do it, but we got to keep her accountable too. And this is to the people who say to me that, oh, you defend Republicans. Like, I don't defend Republicans. It's a matter that the Democrats, whom seemingly supposed to be better, to me are much worse.
Yeah.
And people just give them a pass, I think, more often than not, because they're Democrats and they allegedly do things slightly better, or at least are well-intentioned than Republicans are.
Yeah.
You can say whatever you want about Gates, but he did the damn thing really from the moment that Kevin McCarthy became speaker. And it just sucks that this just kind of proved us right 2 years ago. The fact that I and others marched around Congress trying to appeal to the congressmen at that time who were getting sworn in, to actually follow through on the things that that they ran on, and they chickened out to do it, only to have their Republican counterparts do the shit that we asked them to do, and not necessarily for great reasons, I would argue, depending on how you look at it. But as we said, could you imagine, like, the fervor in the media in terms of Pelosi actually bending to her knees in name of the squad? And as much as these larger channels will say, oh, what's the vote wouldn't work, if the squad did that, they'll be fucking praising them all day long. Like, if anything that will make more people want to consider being Democrats, truly. But no, they couldn't do that. So we're stuck in this position now that the squad look like idiots. Gates is going to be talked about probably for the next few weeks, if not months, depending how long this new speakership process goes. And as I said, this is going to be more of a circus, while in the meantime we're broke, or in the meantime that we're homeless, or in the meantime we don't have any health care, or in the meantime more money.
There's always the macro, and then there's the micro.
Collin, you're forgetting the micro, man.